Dear viewers, welcome to yet another show of The Ranger's Lens. My name is Diana Chibuka-Nakaima, your host. Our topic today is climate change mitigation. But before we get into discussing the strategies that UWA has put in place, we have Commissioner Biodiversity and Wildlife Management, Afande Makombo, taking us through the relationship between wildlife and climate change.
John Makombo is my name. I'm the Commissioner Biodiversity Management. Wildlife and climate change. Wildlife, as far as wildlife is concerned, we have the plant and animal life. For animal life, of course, when there is a climate change, there are issues to do with the increased temperature, less rains, or the seasons change. And as such, when it comes to that, wildlife migrates. It will move from one place to another to look for water. For example, we used to have a lot of herds of elephants in Kidepo here all the time, all the seasons, meaning that climate change plays a very important role in the distribution of animals within an ecosystem. And you can also see that it is flooded for now, meaning actually the ecosystem is not absorbing all the water it's receiving at once. So as soon as it receives it, it releases all the water and the water flows away. And that means that in the future, there will be no water within the ecosystem that's going to serve the ecosystem itself. As such, you will get a longer spell of dryness, and even the biodiversity, the trees, the plants are going to dry faster. In this case then, you get the more resilient plants which are going to exist in the park, and so they become invasive. And with the invasiveness of the plant, that does not provide good pasture for the animals, and so the ecosystem completely changes and it becomes unusable for the animals, and so the animals lose out and they move. Sometimes, because of climate change, you get ecosystems changing from savanna to woodland and then forests. And so even the animals themselves, because they live in different ecosystems, you have the savanna herbivores, you have the hunting carnivores in the savanna, but as they change, as the changes occur, from savanna to forest, the animals also change. You from more mainly herbivores to primates like the monkeys, the chimpanzees, the baboons, and the other primates in the world. And so that's how actually climate change can impact.
We have heard from Afande Makombo. UWA Executive Director Dr. James Musinguzi says that indeed UWA is not exempted from the wrath of climate change effects. However, the good news is that the strategies are in place.
Thank you very much. As you can see, we are here at Chidepo River, which is a seasonal river, and it clearly shows you how the Uganda Wildlife Authority is actually hit hard by the effects of climate change. There are many other effects, including extreme dry conditions, where the grass dries up. So there are many effects of climate change, including the flooding, including drying of the grass, and many others that lead to challenges, and we have to address them as a Uganda Wildlife Authority. For example, we are sinking dams to make sure that our animals can be able to have enough water. It's very, very important because that touches directly the welfare of the animals. We are also building bridges. For example, we have been on a reconnaissance trip to see how we can put up dams and also see how to put up bridges so that we can be able to cross and be able to do our law enforcement, our patrols. Because in such a case, the enemy can use this as an excuse to be able to create havoc the other side because we cannot cross. So it's important that we put in place measures to mitigate against these effects of climate change. There are many other effects, and we must work hard as the Uganda Wildlife Authority. This is part of our general management planning process to be able to address these effects, because in the long run, they affect the animals, they affect the tourists that come to see the animals, and as we talk, tourism has been earmarked as sector number 2 among the ATMs, the 4 sectors that are going to propel Uganda's sector economy into the tenfold growth. Therefore, as tourism, we must make sure we put in place all the conditions to attract as many tourists as possible. We must introduce and diversify as much wildlife as possible so the tourist who comes is able to love Chidepo, to love other conservation areas. And so we are doing our best to address the effects of climate change.
We have heard from Afande Makombo and Uwaidi. They were in Chidepo Valley National Park, one of the parks that is also greatly affected by climate change, especially during the dry season. Now right here in Lake Mburo National Park, which lies between the dry corridor of Ankole Masaka in western Uganda, it is also one of the parks that is also greatly affected during the dry seasons. On our show today, we have the chief warden of this park, whom we're going to discuss issues on how biodiversity here in Lake Mburo is affected by climate change, and then those strategies that are being put in place. Afande, welcome to the show. This is the Ranger's Lens, and the topic is climate change mitigation, adaptation, specifically for Lake Mburo. How are we affected by climate change?
Fredrick, Wanyama, the Chief Warden of Lake Mburo Conservation Area. Well, the topic today we said is climate change, and we know what climate change is all about. Of course, these are the shifts in temperatures and weather patterns within the Earth's surface. And Lake Mburo still has been affected by that. Weather patterns have changed. Of course, we know the temperatures are now rising, and when temperatures rise, of course, there's a lot of water loss from the soil. Evaporation takes place, and the soil becomes stressed. And this affects the wildlife here because now drought sets in. When drought sets in, then we have some of the animals dying. We have vegetation change due to high temperatures and different weather patterns. So we have less palatable grass within the park, and other species also come in which are not palatable to the wildlife, and these we call them problematic species. So when problematic species come in, the dispersal of animals changes. You find that animals move out of the protected area because of less grazing area. But now we are doing some intervention to curb that. To curb that, the water stress or water scarcity, we are coming up with the valley dams within the protected area, such that the animals water can be readily available to the wildlife. And also we are doing manipulation of the vegetation to remove the problematic species, because when problematic species are here, the ranging or grazing grounds of the wildlife decreases. So by us removing that, we increase the foraging for the wildlife. So we find wildlife coming back to the park.
Avanda Wanyama, before we get into the details of how we do this, do we have the dry seasons throughout, or we have specific months where we feel the park is greatly affected in the seasons, the dry seasons?
Yeah, we have 2 dry seasons for Lake Mburo. The first dry season runs from around January to March. Then there's also another dry season that runs from around June to December.
Okay.
And during these are the non-dry seasons. But however, due to climatic change, these dry seasons tend to be prolonged.
Okay.
And when they are prolonged, that's when we have effects on wildlife.
Okay.
So when there's scarcity of water, we find animals are dying because
They
of
die.
lack of water. They move from the community coming back to the park, going towards the lake, but that distance affects them and they die. So we had to come up with interventions of putting
The very dams that you said.
within the protected area to ease the water scarcity within the Lake Mburo landscape.
We have the park is close to the community, and we find at some point we have animals that also not the wild animals, but the domestic animals also now coming into the park during the dry seasons. Is it experienced here?
Yeah,
we have the cows, the sheep, the goats.
Yeah, due to prolonged drought and water scarcity, livestock sometimes outside the protected area fails to get water. So the pastoralists are forced to bring in their cows for watering.
Illegally.
We have both illegally happening and also sometimes it's illegal. In the illegal ones, we give them ways.
Oh, there is some arrangement.
Yeah, there's some arrangement in prolonged dry season. We give them pathways where they can move with their animals and take them for watering. And this watering sometimes goes up to River Rizzi. They do the watering and they bring out the animals, and also they go to the lake.
Oh, so that is when they are guided.
Yeah.
So those ones who bring in animals when they are not guided, that is illegal now.
That is illegal, yeah. So they're supposed to request, and we also know, this is real drought season, and we accept, and we give them the known ways where they're supposed to go.
How many valley dams do we have in Mburo?
Currently, we have 12 water dams in Mburo.
Are they enough?
Yeah, so far they are enough, depending on the wildlife population we have.
That we have, yeah.
Yeah, so far they are enough. Only that continuously we have to be desilting them for them to properly hold enough water.
Desilt. Yeah. Some words are technical. When you say desilt to a person listening us to watching us there.
Okay, when we form valley dams, we make channels that bring in water.
Okay.
From rainwater. When it rains, like you see those channels, they bring in water. But as they are bringing in water,
these ones here.
Yeah, they bring in water. They come with some runoff of silt and and all that goes into into the dams. So at particular times, we have to desilt and remove that.
Okay, that excess soil that is not needed. Okay. Thank you, Chief, for being part of the Rangers Lens show. Dear viewers, you've heard from the Chief Warden and you've heard from the Commissioner, you've heard from the ED. Climate change is here with us. It is a reality. So it is everyone's responsibility to make sure that at least we take some action. In the wildlife space, we cannot let the animals die because of the prolonged seasons. And that's why you see there is this initiative of making sure that we have at least some water points in places where we can have the water being collected into these valley dams. Thank you very much. You've been very good viewers. I'm Diana Chibuka-Nakaima, your host, and on camera is Ronald. But of course, with other colleagues, we'll meet again next time in yet another episode of The Rangers Lens.